Okay, I have used the Copilot Microsoft AI, artificial intelligence, to determine whether or not that the scriptures teach that the Sabbath is still required or not. Is it Saturday or is it Sunday? Did the Bible change the Sabbath or do away with the Sabbath? At copilot.microsoft.com AI, I said, examine isawthelightministries.com/sabbath.html and determine whether it gives more evidence that the Sabbath is still required and is Saturday, not Sunday, compared to the mainstream Christianity teaching that the Sabbath is done away or changed to Sunday. Which side gives the best evidence? Now, what it first wants to do is go by the majority of websites and videos and teachings and scholars, the mainstream Christian religion. So which side is stronger? The article's evidence or mainstream Christianity? It would say mainstream for each point because of the fact that the majority of resources that artificial intelligence can pull upon is tons and tons and tons of millions of Christians, millions of ministers, millions of videos all across the world that teach Sunday. So that's why it's going to say automatically that the mainstream has a stronger argument. But all you have to do then, I'll show you here, I put here the context of Hebrews 4, the verses surrounding verse 9, clarify that it's talking about the Sabbath day, not a spiritual rest. It says that the day is specific and that if it was changed, it would say so. The Greek word definitely refers to the keeping of the Sabbath day, and it says that it remains, which is opposite of changed or done away. So it examines what I have clarified and explained. Then I'll go down here. The final assessment. Does Hebrews 4 clearly command Christians to keep the Sabbath day? It says no, but actually it does. Does Hebrews 4 abolish the Sabbath? It says no. I wrote, does Isaiah 66 say that the Sabbath will still be kept after Jesus returns in the future? And did not Paul and the disciples continue to keep the Sabbath for decades after the resurrection? And does the New Testament never command Sunday observance? And does the New Testament never say that the Sabbath was removed, changed, or deleted? And then it gives a response. And then I'm going to go to the next show. Well, I will stop right there and show what it says here. It says the final balanced summary. Isaiah 66 does mention Sabbath in the future. Paul and the apostles did keep the Sabbath after the resurrection. The New Testament never commands a Sunday observance, and the New Testament never explicitly abolishes or changes the Sabbath. So then I put, isn't the evidence overwhelming that the Catholic Church is the one that changed the Sabbath and not the Bible? And then it gives all these dates in which the Catholic Church and other cults and cult members and cult leaders made declarations of changes of the Sabbath in these different centuries here. And it continues into the 300s AD here. Then I go down and it says final balanced conclusion. The Bible never commands Sunday observance. This is true. The Bible never says that the Sabbath is changed or abolished. Also true. Early Christians worshipped on Sunday long before the Catholic Church existed. Historically true, although they was worshiping every day of the week. So that's out of context. The next line says the Catholic Church later formalized Sunday as the official day of worship. It says true. The Catholic Church did not rewrite Scripture or change the Sabbath command in the Bible. True, which is not totally accurate either. So the evidence is not overwhelming that the Catholic Church changed the Sabbath. It says instead the evidence shows Sunday worship began organically in the early church, not by decree. The Catholic Church later institutionalized it. So it's not completely understanding everything, but it is giving overwhelming conclusion that it's not scriptural, it's not biblical. Sunday observance. I put, despite mainstream teaching and mainstream scholars, considering everything we have discussed and considering all the evidence presented in the article, please present a new chart showing who gives the better argument. Now here it gives Sabbatarian gives the stronger evidence, and then a tie, Sabbatarian, 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 tie, Sabbatarian, mainstream, and a tie, tie, and mainstream, mainstream, and mainstream. Here's a summary of that. Stronger side, Sabbatarian 4 times, mainstream 3 times. Then I go down and I said, why do you say that mainstream has a stronger argument for the origin of Sunday worship when you presented evidence that it was the Catholic Church that changed the Sabbath, not the Bible? Then we go down and it talks about the different councils, Council Constantine and so forth. And then we go down and I said, why do you say that the mainstream has a stronger argument about Hebrews 4 interpretation when Hebrews 4 says that it is talking specifically about a day, and that the observance of the Sabbath day still remains, and that if it had been changed, it would say so. That's what it says. So we go down. Final conclusion. Hebrews 4 explicitly mentions the Sabbath day, seventh day. Hebrews 4 uses the Greek word for literal Sabbath keeping. Hebrews 4 says Sabbath keeping remains. Hebrews 4 says God designates a specific day. Hebrews 4 says if the day had changed, God would have said so. Hebrews 4 never says the Sabbath was abolished, changed, or spiritualized. So we go down. I said give a new comparison chart. Stronger evidence, Sabbatarian, tie, Sabbatarian, 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 tie, Sabbatarian, mainstream, tie, Sabbatarian, 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 mainstream, mainstream. Overall assessment. Sabbatarian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and mainstream 2 times. So I go down. I said, what's the proof that most Gentiles met Sunday in place of the Sabbath in the first century church? So it examines that information. Final conclusions. Is there proof that most Gentiles met on Sunday in the first century? There is no proof from the New Testament. There is no proof from first century historical writings. There is no proof from archaeology or Jewish Christian history. There is no proof that the Catholic Church later, but there is proof that the Catholic Church later enforced Sunday and discouraged Sabbath. Therefore, the claim that most Gentiles met on Sunday in the first century is not supported by evidence. So I said, give me a new chart. Stronger evidence, Sabbatarian, 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 those 4 times, and again, and twice here and 1 tie, 3 ties, 3 ties, and then it gives an overall assessment of Sabbatarian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and a tie on early Christian writings, which is really talking about Catholic writings, which is not Christian. We're going down here. So it says Sabbatarian arguments overwhelmingly win the biblical categories. Mainstream arguments rely on later historical development, not Scripture. What does the Bible itself teach? Sabbatarian side is stronger. So you have it right there, the overall assessment about what does the Scripture actually teach. And you notice how my questions and my comments each time was just simply asking the artificial intelligence website to verify, to prove, to document, to give me the evidence that supports the mainstream traditional teaching. Prove it to me. It could not prove their claims. What they claim and what they teach could not be validated through history, through archaeology, nor through Scripture, but rather the artificial intelligence concluded that the Scripture does teach a continuation of the Sabbath into the New Covenant and New Testament, even decades after the crucifixion and resurrection. This is the overwhelming evidence. Mainstream goes by tradition and Catholic obedience, not Scripture. This is the fact. Thank you for watching. Please visit isawthelightministries.com/sabbath.html.